And we are recording and you know Ed's Mr. Edward Lewis is here and I know you're a fan of the podcast. We corresponded on Twitter for I'd say several months and then started chatting offline and yeah, I think you asked her like what's the gauntlet to get on? Like what does one have to do to get on the podcast? And I think you've already gone through the two biggest tiers, and they're unofficial gauntlets. The first is that I'd say there's three tiers. The first is that I will constantly reschedule on you because I'm a terrible host. The second is on the day we do it, I will constantly push it back by 5 minute increments or 10 minute increments, wearing the patience thin. And then third, I will normally come on and say, "Hey, I'm having some chronic anxiety today," which I've dealt with for every day for the past, I don't know, 12 years. And at this point, if the person is still willing to come on the podcast and not wring my neck, well, then I'd say you've gone through the gauntlet. So, but before we continue the conversation we were just having, Ed, introduce yourself, my man.
Yeah, well, hello, Tommy. I am indeed a big fan of you. I love your show. I love following it, and it's an honor to be here. So, I'm Edward. You might recognize my accent. It's British, and I am a musician and also a big believer in the blockchain cryptocurrency Chia. Yeah, but how are you doing today, Tommy?
I'm good. Like I was telling you beforehand, I'm having a little bit of anxiety, and you asked, what is it like for me? Um, Normally it's guiding in that the times in my life when it's been the most chronic, like I said, 12 years. It started really like August 2010. And that was my sophomore year of college. I had terrible grades and I had no idea where I was going. And I was partying a lot. I was drinking a lot and gaining a lot of weight, gaining a lot of weight and going nowhere fast. And that anxiety pushed me to kind of cut the shit, start studying. And ultimately, I would say, in hindsight, it pushed me all the way to medical school. Um, and in that sense, it's very beneficial. It took me from a route of going nowhere fast to a route of relative success. Other times, it's not really been beneficial. Um, but I would say even up to like a month ago, it was probably beneficial. It was kind of I can see in hind and you can never see it while you're in it. You can never see the lesson being taught while you're being taught it. It's only in hindsight. And I think what it had been showing me most of 2022 is cut back on the booze, cut back on the fast food. If you're not happy with your weight, stop fucking eating, stop making excuses. You can't pull the "I'm old now" card because I'm friends with Delta Force guys who are 60 and could kick the shit out of me. So there are days like today where it doesn't necessarily seem to be beneficial. Like I'm putting away money. I'm working nonstop on the podcast, always striving for it to be bigger and better. Next month, I'm moving closer to family. I'm exercising more than ever. I'm getting perfect sleep. I treat my mental health like it is the most vital health sign, not blood pressure, not whatever the fuck. I think I'm a good person. And yeah, and then there are just days like today where there's just like a rising frequency, almost like static. And you'll drive yourself mad if you try to find the source of it. It's because if you find the source of it, and that if, big if, it's normally in hindsight. Like, oh, I'm being a bad boyfriend. I don't have a girlfriend, but yeah, I'm being a bad whatever in a relationship. I'm being a bad friend. I stole from somebody. I'm blaming others. I'm not taking responsibilities on myself. I should be bettering myself. Or I'm doing actions that I know harm me. You know, I'm someone that unfortunately for really since my concussion this past May, I've kind of learned that I just can't drink alcohol anymore. I get panic attacks the next day. Not hangover anxiety, which is a normal thing. I mean, like, have to convince myself not to call an ambulance. So, in hindsight, that anxiety is good. Then there are days like today where Everything's good. Everything's going up. But for some reason, there's a little just kind of electricity. And instead of going mad trying to figure out what it is, sometimes you kind of just got to bite the bullet, work through it. And there's never a moment that you realize the anxiety's gone, but there's never a big, oh, it's over. All of a sudden, you're just doing whatever, putting away dishes, folding laundry. And you're like, oh, I'm not anxious anymore. So that was a really long answer to your question, but I hope it sufficed.
You know, alcohol is never good, is it? It's I think it screws with your sleep so much that people who, even if they just drank it like a couple of times a week, they may have never properly had deep sleep for like years and years because you sort of get disrupted.
It takes uh it takes 21 days for your cerebrospinal fluid to completely go back to levels prior to consuming alcohol. So if you're like me, where I drink once a week, yeah, it'd probably been well over a year that the actual, I don't know, fluid that my brain is soaking in was at the levels where it should have been. That could be bro science. That might not be based on anything. But real quick, could you explain the thumbnail? Thanks a lot for this opportunity. All right, I'm guessing I'm Rogan and you're Elon Musk.
No, no, you're Elon Musk and Joe Rogan.
Oh, oh, well that's just a now you're just kissing my ass and making me feel good, but I'll take it. I'm not gonna turn down a compliment. I thought you were Musk and I was Rogan. I thought we were both
It
becoming
does sound like
astronomical
that.
figures. Yeah, I like it. I like that
Well,
more.
who's who?
I don't really I kind of like in the second frame. In the first one, you have Elon Musk meets Joe Rogan written in red and with a yellow backdrop. But in the second one, it's just white text with no border, and it kind of looks like Elon Musk melts Joe Rogan. Kind of like that. I kind of like that idea. It kind of seems like it could either be that could either be interpreted as like a felonious murder, or a fucking badass like hybrid human. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Ed?
To please the YouTube algorithm, they're going to have to keep going to crazier and crazier lengths. So melting Elon Musk could be what's needed in the future.
Do you think that's the only way we're going to garner views is to just have Musk melt Rogan? That might be the only way to get this thing going. I don't know, man.
It's the way the world's going.
Yeah. Um so we chatted last week or the week before about Chia and Bitcoin, and we can definitely go into that. But you had mentioned kind of, and this is where I think actually some of the best podcasts come from, is just like a side note somebody will drop. Like I had on one guy and we were going to talk about, I don't even remember what. I think it was like weightlifting or the mob. And he just casually dropped that his mom his mom was a lady of the night in the 50s and 60s, and she slept with Jack Ruby, the guy that killed Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy that killed Kennedy. And I was like, wait, hold the fuck up. What? And I was like, fuck the fuck. I don't give a shit about the mob. What the hell? And he's like, oh yeah, no, my mom, this guy's like 65. He's just built like a tank. And he's like, oh yeah, no, my mom she was a hooker. And he's like, I'm okay with admitting that. Like I love her or loved her. She passed on. He's like, but yeah, she, for a while she was sleeping with Jack Ruby. Just like, we have to go, you can't gloss over that. Like
No,
we gotta, I know it's like a shitty overused meme, but it's like record scratch. Like, hold the fuck up. What? So when you and I were chatting, what was it, last Sunday? Bitcoin, Chia, crypto, blockchain, you were kind of explaining it all to me. You just casually dropped that on September 11, 2001. Yes, you took psilocybin and you witnessed 9/11 on psychedelics.
correct.
Could you please elaborate on that? Because that is something that I can't just gloss over. Like that's insane.
No, and we've got to come back to the Jack Ruby. I wanted to find out more about that, but yeah, digging into this, I shot Lee Harvey Oswald on mushrooms.
Yeah. That'd
So
be that's the real story, Ruby. Uh, Pupils the size of just saucers walking in there, singing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, blast shoot fucking Oswald in the stomach. That's like honest, I wonder how far from reality that it because right, it is kind of there are a couple assassinations that like do kind of make you wonder about MK Ultra or Project
sure.
Monarch, right? Lee Harvey, sure, it was sketchy, but that guy was also kind of unhinged if you go and read about him. He really was kind of delusions of grandeur. But Ruby was that was weird. He was like he was kind of like a well-known guy in like the Dallas kind of seedy underworld. And then he just walks into a police station
Yeah,
and
that was the building
yells.
7 of.
Yeah, yeah, it was correct. It was the building 7 of that. It was bad, but like, and then Sirhan, right, walks up and allegedly shoots Bobby at the hotel. Those are ones that, I mean, is it completely out of the realm of possibility that he was on some form of psychedelic?
Yeah, I think that they condition them with psychedelics and sort of hypnosis.
Yeah.
So then it's almost just like telling someone to do it, I think.
Yeah, that is insane because I mean, MK comes from mind control, control of the K. The original, I think, I don't know if they barely started the experiments, but it started in, I want to say like Auschwitz-Birkenau or something.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously we all know about paperclip, Operation Paperclip with rockets, but I mean, we brought back Nazis for every program, including that. It's not at all a stretch to say that, I mean, it is, but it's also not to say doing mushrooms and shooting Lee Harvey, they're probably not that independent of one another.
No, because they're picking out people who have got malleable minds. It's not like they're coming to someone like you and who's an independent thinker, but probably people who fought in wars or something have been traumatized on some level. So I guess that taking acid or something would be an escape, but then they can be manipulated. So I could fully believe that that could happen. Yeah.
Well, that is the idea of MK Ultra, right? Is the idea that it's like meditation. You're supposed to go like really far inward, really far inward. And it's like if you want to manipulate the whole universe, you wouldn't like blow up planets and destroy stars. You would go down to the atomic level, subatomic, and you'd change like the gravitational constant by a decimal point. And that would ripple out to the rest of the universe. Like meditation, you kind of go deep. And then in a way, therapy is like that. It's not meditation, but in the same sense, you kind of get closer and closer to the core. And whatever the problem is, whether it's like trauma from a war or, childhood abuse or rape or whatever, you really kind of get closer to like it's like abandonment or it's fear of death and once you get to that very like bottom of the foundation, it's almost like pulling the thorn out. And then from there it ripples outwards. And from what I've read and from what I understand, the concept of MK Ultra or Project Monarch, which officially was never recognized, is that you introduce such insane levels of trauma to someone that you kind of clear the slate. And in that clean slate, you can program them. That's at least what was hypothesized. I don't know if they ever actually followed through on it. But yeah, if you didn't have a if you didn't know what you were expecting and plan for it, like I read about psychedelics for years before I ever did it. If you didn't know that and you were just given them, and then not only that, you weren't I read about them. I went to a beautiful place out in the sun, out in the woods on a lake with a friend who I trusted, and we had some alcohol in case we got too fucked up, and we would use that to calm down. Imagine being put in a terrible place and not even knowing what psychedelics were, and then somebody consciously trying to induce trauma. That would that would shatter your mind.
Yeah, when you're high on mushrooms, seeing something horrible that multiplies it like 100, so that's doing something deliberately nasty. I,
Could
I would
so
think that that's what they do.
so so people don't have to hearing me ramble because you are the guest. Could you go into like what that was like doing psychedelics on 9/11?
Yeah, it was entirely life-changing in a lot of ways, the way I saw the world, but at the same time, it's kind of very natural. It didn't seem strange. It seemed like it, not that it was meant to be, but it just seemed natural. That's all I can say. So when the planes were flying in, I almost felt like I saw it for what it was, and it just felt like it was sort of the fusion of movies and trauma. This is the trauma-based mind control. So when I look back, I sort of escaped it, I think, because I was on mushrooms
Mm,
and sort of realized, oh, hold on a sec, the media is fake. If this event is fake, the media is that mind control. That's what I
yeah,
concluded.
that's actually that's a fascinating take. Is well, on one hand, you have I want to go to the natural aspect of it. That is kind of a beautiful thing. I honestly think that weed is more anxiety inducing than LSD or mushrooms. I would always
Mm.
smoke weed, but I was always scared to do psychedelics. And now that I've done psychedelics, I'm like, yeah, no, weed's scarier. On psychedelics, you do uh the late Richard Alpert, aka Baba Ram Dass, would talk about his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, a guy who died in like the 60s. And said he'd be talking to Neem Karoli Baba, and Ram Dass lived in India for a couple of years and helped raise money from because he was a Harvard professor before that, so he raised money from all his old contacts and helped fund over like 1 million surgeries in India for like cataracts removal or something. Some like low technology surgery that would allow farmers, people that you worked with their hands, would allow them to like see up close. So instead of because in kind of if you're in like a backwards, if you're in a lower caste of a poor nation, if you're not working, like you are a burden, right? That's why a lot of them have so many kids is so that they can help feed the family. So he funded all these, like, I think like 1.3 million surgeries over like a decade. Just a good guy doing the Lord's work. And he asked his guru, he's like, I don't. This is like the 60s, like late 60s. And he was like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. Like you have the Cold War ramping up. You have war in Vietnam. You have you just wanton slaughter around the world as the proxy armies are going against each other. And he was like, I don't know what to do. Like it's too overwhelming. Like I can't fight the forest fire on my own. And apparently Neem Curly Baba looked at him and goes, Ram Dass, don't you see how perfect it all is? And he said at the time he was taken aback and almost kind of angry at him. He was like, how the fuck can you say it? Look how perfect it all is. But like 40 years later, he goes, I can now see how perfect it all is. Like it's all just karma flowing perfectly. Like everyone is on this world getting the exact lesson they needed. We're using each other's karma. You're binding karma. Some guy that's abusing a daughter is actually, he's now reliving a life where he was the abuser or he was the abused, and then now the daughter was the abuser in the prior life, and they're like doing this weird karmic dance, and how like all wars, you have to have war in order to have peace. I think the quote was, you have to have hippies in order to have police, and you have to have the police in order to create the hippies. It's all just like a beautiful yin yang dance. And he was like, every war and skirmish and starvation and rape, he goes, you start to see it as just perfect pieces of the puzzle. And that sounds like a very cruel thing to say. But I look back on losing a brother, and man, as bad as that was, and I would do anything to bring him back, because I can't bring him back, I have to do the next best thing and find the good in it. It has liberated me more than any psychedelic ever could. It has shown me that I too will die, and everyone I know will die. Act accordingly. And I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but it kind of sounds like that's I can abstractly theoretically get what you're saying, where it seems so natural that this would happen.
Mm, yeah, that natural feeling that when I took mushrooms, I haven't done mushrooms for a fair amount of time, but it just gave me this feeling of perspective. But it's like I could see exactly how the world was for about 2 hours or 3 hours or
Mm-hmm.
something. So to witness that event with that clarity, yeah, I just always remember the newscasters saying so quickly, Osama bin Laden is to blame. And I was thinking, how do they know that already? The
Yeah.
towers had not even fallen down, or they're in the process. How do they know that? It doesn't make any sense. Like, this is meant to be a chaotic thing. So the hypnosis is going along with the insanity, which is obviously the media. That's why I said on the first slide, the media is the problem. So as much as the good intentions of yourself and the Alex Joneses and everyone else is still 0.001% of the world's population know what's going on.
Yeah.
So until you can change those numbers, it's like you've not fully won the battle, I guess.
It's almost like I hate scary movies, and but every once in a while I'll find myself going, thank God for YouTube, even though I hate YouTube with every fiber of my being, but thank God for YouTube because it allows you to go in and just find individual clips of scary movies, right? So you know it's coming. You're not getting blindsided by a jump scare. Like you can go and you can go quote hide out in the comments, right? You always see in the comments like who else is hiding out in the comments, right? And just scrolling, like putting a thumb over the screen. You don't want to see the whatever it is, the witch or the demon. Um, but every once in a while I'll go down like just a little rabbit hole and I'll be like, why the fuck am I doing this? Why the fuck? And I'm doing it at 3 a.m. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And I'm 32 and I end up sleeping with like the bathroom light on. And and then sometimes I'd get kind of like fucked up, like get a little drunk and watch it. And I found I had like a lot more courage to watch. I was like, give me your demons. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. And then what sounds like a terrible idea, getting high and watching it, it was actually sort of like a bell curve. You, if you got high enough, you actually couldn't be scared. If you get a little bit high, you're horrified at a scary movie. But if you get way too high, sorry, my stomach's gurgling. You can't not see it as a movie. You see it as like oh, there's like a director behind the screen right now. Like
Mm,
this is a sound stage. Oh, this is really good makeup. Somebody got paid a lot of money to do that makeup. They're the best in Hollywood. I wonder what their story is. They're probably watching this movie like this is my best work. Like there's an actor in there. Like how many times have they done this scene? Like, you know, in between takes is the demon sitting with like the little girl or something and they're just chatting about what and it's like it almost pushes you like beyond the veil. You go up to the edge and like you touch what's supposed to be a wall, but instead it's just like like a curtain. Like you're like that's not solid.
mm.
I would
For
imagine
or
there's yeah, I would imagine there's something like that taking mushrooms on 9/11 where you're not sucked in by the horror of planes hitting buildings and people being burned alive, but rather by the absurdity of like, how do they already know who did this?
yeah, and also the connections of the people you're with. You suddenly, the bond between people that pull together, the energy of it, that's what the real feeling is in the moment. So I was with my friends because I was in my early 20s. So it was just like it just was in perspective straight away. So there was like a natural energy. But yeah, the absurdity of knowing that saying that bin Laden was behind it straight away. And then when the third tower fell, this was not linked to the mushrooms. That's just looking back. Like that is the ultimate smoking gun.
Yeah.
Building 7, building 7, building 7, until everyone more or less sees that that's absurd. The battle is not won. It's a good reference point, but yeah, Amsterdam, mushrooms, 9/11. I
What
think
else?
I've got a
What else came of
little.
that?
There's the label
Oh,
there.
jeez. So you've got what, the ticket or the sticker?
Yeah, that was the old tag that was attached to my bag
Yeah,
at the
dated
time.
departure, 9/11/01.
Yeah,
Ooh, ooh.
so it's just synchronicity. So I really changed my view of the world in that period. From it was because of mushrooms, I think, and I just thought the media is fake. So I didn't realize that there was something even more sinister behind it all. So this was kind of they call it the genesis story of.
When you say there's something more sinister behind it all, you mean there's something beyond the media just being fake?
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick made his final film about it. That there's a cult, a religious cult
Oh yeah,
that
I watched that.
comprises Dutch monarchy, British monarchy, and then the political institution of America. Almost everyone. That it's just that Stanley Kubrick made the film. It was released in 1999 called Eyes Wide Shut, and the final interview he ever did, he talked about Icarus flying close to the sun.
Uh-oh.
It's a beautiful interview. It's like he knew that he was going to die because, and the year that he died, it was released. They changed the name of the award at the ceremony. He had just been given Best Director award, and they said that it was because of the previous director's racist comments that they had to change the name of the award. And it was like the first, seemingly like the first censorship and use of that stick, that tool to sort of
Hmm.
silence information. So they censored Stanley Kubrick, is what they did.
Do you think this is a case of hiding the conspiracy in plain sight? Because like we all know there's the military industrial complex, and then even older than that, their banking interests. Like you don't even have to be a quote unquote conspiracy theorist. You kind of got to be an adult to be like, yeah, what are you fucking stupid? Of course money runs the world. But do you think that this is like another level past that? Like, I have no problem believing that like intelligence agencies hold governments hostages and presidents and prime ministers and queens and premiers and whatever. Like, they're probably not totally in charge. You have a cabal of people, of wildly intelligent people, of military leaders just behind the stage, kind of controlling each pawn. And then those pawns are fighting each other. So in a weird way, it still kind of is independent leaders. You have like the American mafia, the Russian mafia, the Chinese mafia, the mafia, quote unquote, being the intelligence communities. But I know at least I like to believe because it just seems fascinating objectively. I mean, it's evil, but it's also fascinating. The idea like there is like a cabal behind it all. I mean, what better
Yeah.
way to kind of deny it than just outwardly put a movie about it, right? It almost seems too ridiculous.
Yeah, well, Kubrick was very, very careful about uh he kept control of final cut of his films. He had full creative control his entire career. Uh, if not his entire career, most of his career. The ability to just turn up at a film studio and hand a finished film over
Yeah.
anytime you wanted
Yeah.
was completely, you know. So his daughter has said since then that she almost winked at the camera and said he was very careful to keep his creative control. And it
Uh,
seems that he had figured out that there was a cult that was basically behind it all and sort of went all in at the end of his career to basically show it. And so the level of hypnosis is such that when the best director of all time released a film, his final film that everyone said is one of the best films ever was released, and there's a scene in it filmed at a Rothschild house
yeah.
with other members. And why is that scene in the film? if it's not really happening in real life.
Yeah.
And so that is, so Building 7, the Stanley Kubrick scene, those two pieces alone should show you what's going on. So
Yeah. What do you think what do you think is like the conclusive thesis of I remember the first time I think I had started looking into conspiracies maybe when I was like I don't know, maybe like 15, like right at the beginning of high school. And within like a year, I started going like, what's the big conspiracy though? Because you'd always hear about the
yeah,
JFK conspiracy, the UFO conspiracy, the World War II conspiracy, and then eventually I'd be like, well, are these all just like these independent I was like, or are they all part of a system of systems, like the big
yeah.
one? And
I think it's that.
so I've been trying to piece that together on and off, not with any real hopes of ever getting to the real answer. I don't even think you'd know if you got to the real answer because how would you confirm it? But I've been trying to put together like what is the thesis of theses? Like, what is the title of the book, not the individual chapters. What is the book? You know, Harry Potter, 7 books with God knows how many chapters. But it's the story of like the lone hero, the chosen one, the hero's journey, blah blah blah. Good beats evil, the end. Cool, got it. What do you think the big picture is of the conspiracy? Not just like CIA, not just World Economic Forum, but is it multi-generational? Is it going back hundreds of years? What do you think?
Yeah, it is, and it comes down to this. So the media is the problem. It's a tiny thing of control, but it's a thing of control that controls like 95 to 99% of everything. And basically one family owns it. And the media is a lot more than people realize because it's also email. So people think that like the media is, I don't know, trashy newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
but it's everything the human eye perceives information from. So all email is definitely the media, which is, Bill Gates and Google largely. And then all the TV has always been owned by the cult. And then when it goes back to the Battle of Waterloo, they openly said that they collapsed the stock market to buy up all the shares.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they did it is because they were able to communicate a message 24 hours earlier. That is the
Yeah.
media.
Yeah, the right the that one horseman. There was like a private
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
G. Edward Griffin talks about it in his book, the creature from Jekyll
Oh,
Island. Yeah. No, and that's not a conspiracy. The Rothschilds actually had like a spoiler alert, private's always better than public. They had their own private I guess messenger who came back from the Battle of Waterloo with the results 24 hours before anybody else did. And they basically did insider trading, collapsed, they collapsed Great Britain and France. Is that correct? Am I getting it right?
yeah. That's exactly as I understand it. Is exactly that. Yeah. And it was because they had that person who could travel 24 hours quicker to deliver a message. But delivering messages is just what the media is. So
Hmm.
they 400 years, or sorry, 200 years, whenever the Battle of Waterloo
I think
was.
it was 1815, 1812,
There
1815.
you go, man with the dates there. So that what was that?
207 years ago. I'll look it up.
Nice one, yeah. That's for how long they live. That's about a person and a half. But uh,
Battle.
if they controlled the media back then, and then they were able to buy up the city of London then as well as a multiplier, then why are they not talked about in the media in England if they're that powerful? They own the money system and the media. It's because they control the media, they can keep it quiet. So, as far as hiding in plain sight, they're not really, they're hiding in the background in their own world, but then completely obfuscating their existence by controlling the very thing that you would use to find out about them.
Yeah, June 18th, 1815. Um, yeah, that's kind of an interesting way. And for people that are watching, they might think that you and I planned this conversation because you seemingly have slides that go hand in glove, but this was not planned. I don't know.
No, I have planned this. I plan
Oh,
my
okay.
slides for sure. But
Okay.
yeah,
If I hit on them like bingo, you just pull up the necessary. Um, or we're just kind of we're just on that vibe, that frequency. But um it kind of makes me think of I love the Far Cry games, and I'm playing my second Ghost Recon game right now. I played Ghost Recon Wildlands, and now I'm playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And people always kind of critique these games, Far Cry, Ghost Recon. It's all the same thing, right? You're sneaking around shooting people. Yeah, I don't give a shit. I listen to audiobooks in the morning. I do the podcast. I do all my like learning earlier in the day, and late in the evening, I like to turn off my brain and just walk around some countryside with a gun in a video game and just shoot people. Like I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Um, that being said, one thing I've always liked about these games, and it's a just cause, you can do some of it. It's you have this sprawling map, and you have, I don't know, 100 individual military bases, and it's games are massive now, so the maps are just 25 by 25 kilometers. It'll take you. I took me about 2 full nights of gaming just to walk across the map. And what I've always loved about these games is not so much the plot or the big story or the bosses or whatever. I've always loved these games in different iterations, whether you're like the ragtag rebels or whether you're some high speed spec ops guy with the best CIA gear. I've always loved just like walking through like a forest or on a mountain, like a ridge, and spotting a military outpost and like laying down, getting binoculars or a drone and spending like 20 or 25 minutes just looking at the whole thing, mapping everything out, tagging all the individual guys. And then you start to find out which guys are the most important. You find the snipers on the towers. Then you find the alarm system, which calls backup, like air support or other troops. And then you find like a power generator. And you can go in kind of guns blazing like an idiot, and you'll kill a couple, but they're gonna wipe you out. They're gonna center mortar fire on you. And even if you kill everyone at the base, there's still just endless waves of tanks coming. They fuck you up. But I will never not love like the surgical, and it takes maybe 10 tries, it takes like an hour to really get it down pat, but I love just redoing it, just hitting restart and just getting it to perfection. The first thing you always do, number one, alarms. Make it so that there is now a finite number of people. Make it so that they are off the map. No, the people that on the horizon don't know that they're in trouble. Number one, take out alarms. Number two, pop the power. The whole thing goes dark. So you got to wait till night. Number three, find the snipers because those are the next best thing. Instead of power, they can still maybe find you with thermal. Pop them one at a time. All the while, you're trying to use a silencer. Once you've done them, it's kind of yours for the taking. You can still go in guns blazing, but and they'll fuck you up. It's even better to just one by one, just take them out. And you don't even want to kill one guy standing next to another guy because even if it's at night and you use a silenced weapon and they don't know where the bullet came from, if me and Ed are standing there and all of a sudden my head explodes, Ed turns and goes, "Fuck, they got another one." You want to get the stragglers that go out one at a time. And finally, you can bring a base that is, you know, 500 meters by 500 meters with its own power plant and tanks and airfield and gunners and tanks and mortars. You can bring it down to its knees to where there's just a couple of guys running around terrified, and then you just pew, 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 and it's yours. And then you go in and loot the whole base. I just love it. I love the surgical breakdown of it. But when you
if you think
said,
that
go on.
if you think the Rothschilds are going to give that base up that quickly, I think you're wrong.
Well, no, so but what I was saying is no, it's actually more out of like a respect your enemy. When
Yeah,
you said, they delivered a message on a horse, and that's the media is conveying a message. What's the very first in this entire scheme? What's the very first thing you do? Take out the alarms so they can't notify others. So what's the very first
Brilliant.
thing you
Yeah.
control? If you wanted to go against my surgical takedown, the first thing you would make is you'd make the alarms bulletproof because it's normally like a big box. You see it, it's just like it's like labeled with
Yeah.
the alarm, like in real life. But if you really want to prevent my whole takedown, you would just make that a bulletproof box or put it underground, and then my whole thing's fucked. Now, inversely, let's say you and I are the bad guys running the base, the Rothschild's base. Yeah, that box is going to be behind 3 brick walls in an iron safe buried underground with backups. That is the media. Control the message.
Absolutely.
Sorry for
Absolutely.
that incoherent
No, I
rambling.
love this is why I love you. I love your show
Thanks,
is
man.
the way that you can explain things with deep introversion, but explain it in a meaningful way. I get something from it. So yeah, it's
Thank
an
you.
honor to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you've exactly nailed it. I think that when you talked about the thesis of it all, I think the media is a problem, but what they have done, and I think it's maybe when I first messaged you, this idea that the more that you ban people, the more that you kind of push all their energy together in a strange way, like almost like cream
I
coming
you
together.
I've cited you before on this podcast before I ever even remembered it was you
Ah,
that said that. I've brought that up before, the cream to the top. I remember the
yeah.
first time you sent me that. It was probably like February of this year, and I saved it because I was like, "Oh, I was like, that's a badass idea. Could you explain it to people? Because I genuinely love it. I do. It's in my repertoire of like tools I use. Excuse me.
Tell you what, let me dig it out on my computer. If you could just
Sure, yeah,
explain your version of
yeah.
it, and I'll find it.
So the way I interpreted it, and maybe it's completely incorrect, and Ed's about to shit on my fantasy, but the way I interpreted it is like well, there it is if let's say I'm on YouTube, which I was on from December 12th, 2019 till August 29th, 2021, right? YouTube, 2 billion users. You're sharing the same channels as Joe Rogan, Donald Trump, and PewDiePie. Like you're going in there. It's David versus Goliath. When you get banned, it sucks because you lose access to that 2 billion person market. But I had 5,000 subscribers. That's not a whole lot. When I get kicked off and I have to go to Rumble, which I would imagine is probably at like 2 million users, that's based on nothing, but I'm going to assume it's probably around 2 million, 1/1000th. And I now have 12,000 subscribers. So although the market is 1/1000th the size and my subscribers are double, I am now holding roughly 2,000 times more of a share of the market. And so you now kind of you stick out more and you're actually kind of getting more than you deserve, right? If I go I'm 5'9" on a good day. If I went and tried to play in the NFL, I would probably be killed on like the first play. But if I go and play in college, I'm probably still going to get killed. And I won't do that well in high school either. Maybe not even middle school. But if you put me on a field with a bunch of kindergartners, I'm going to be the best in the nation. You're going to see me and it's you're going to see me on Sports Center because relatively I'm going to be the guy that scores 20 touchdowns a game. I'm just undefeated. I win the championship 4 years in a row. I'm just killing toddlers on my way to the end zone. I am going to get a share of airtime because people are going to be like, look how good this guy is. Even though guys who are much better than me at that same sport are not getting the airtime because relatively to their own arena of competitors, they're not doing extraordinarily better. But I am doing a ton better. And now I get a ton of attention. And thus, I might actually get catapulted to a much higher realm of competitive football than I deserve because being put in such a poor pool or a lower pool, you stick out more. Now, that's a really cocky thing to say. But when I first saw this image that you sent me, that if people aren't, you should watch, I'm not going to explain it, just watch. Yeah, I got kicked off to much smaller platforms, but I'm also not dealing with nearly as much competition. And so that now I'm now getting in a boxing ring with like 2-year-olds and I'm going undefeated. And sure, maybe it's morally questionable, but like I'm undefeated. I'm kicking the shit out of toddlers. I am now going to get more attention on my podcast than had I not been banned from the 2 billion person market. Is that correct? Or am I just a total psychopath?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That the more that they the more that they have used MK Ultra on you, they've this is all part of the mind control. But yeah, you're creating a critical mass of influencers and thought people really more than anything by banning people. You know, maybe say if they banned you off Rumble, let's just say, like, do you not think that I'm going to find out where you are next? Like, of course I am. Like,
Yeah.
I will every time that you get banned, you specifically, Tommy, because obviously I have a connection. I like your show. Like, it could be like, well, we're only going to do the podcast like live from Australia once a year. It won't be broadcast, but I'll just stand over in a corner. I would probably go for that. Do
Fuck
you know what I
yeah.
mean? If I wanted to for that
Yeah.
meaningful thing, so people will dig the information out. So by thinking they can censor people, they've just essentially simmered, let's just say, the good minds. I don't mean it like other
Sure.
people aren't good minds, but
Oh, I get it.
let's just say the out of the box thinkers. It sort of simmered them down, and they're just getting more and more visible as to what their message is because the platforms they're on are smaller. So yeah, it's like what you said, and I think that's where we're at now.
And I do think it's good. You know, I hate it and I would like immediate success, but there also is like it does sharpen your resolve when you keep getting banned and shadow banned and silenced and kicked off. It does make you work. Now, you might just throw in the towel and say, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore. But if you do stay with it, you start to fine hone yourself in a way that you normally wouldn't. Like getting banned from YouTube, I was like, I just have to step it up a notch. And then 6 months went by and I was like, I have to step it up another notch. And now a year and 2 months has gone by. And whenever I think I can't push it further, I find myself going, you just have to push it further. And when the views on Rumble started getting froggy like 2 months ago, and they're still kind of froggy, it kind of feels like they're messing with it. You can cave or you can start uploading to more platforms. You can start trying to get bigger guests. You can start working longer days. In a way, it is a gift. It's a it's pushing you against. I had a buddy named I still have a buddy named Ivan, 6'4", bodybuilder, looks like the Terminator. Every girl wants to fuck him. Every guy wants to be him. It just sucks. It just sucks. But he's the nicest guy in the world. You just want to fucking hate him, but he's perfect. He's beautiful, but he's also just like the sweetest guy in the world. And I remember he came in. He's a professional bodybuilder. He lives out in Vegas. And in 2015 or 2016, he came in just when he got his citizenship. He came and lived with me for like a month in Georgia, and we went to the gym every day together. And at that point, I had been working out for like 12 years, and I was in a bit of a bad spot. It was 2 years after my brother died, so I wasn't working out as hard as before. But the point is he would push you so much farther than you thought you could go. And I know it sounds cheesy, but I mean, really, like you might tell yourself, I can go work out hard for 30 minutes. And if I really had to, if I was trying to impress a girl, I could maybe work out for 45 minutes. But Ivan would bring you over on a Monday morning and you guys would go at it for 2 hours. And he would, it's always stuck with me. He would push you and it wasn't even uncomfortable. You just, you'd leave there going, I didn't even know I could do that. Like, he unlocked this potential within you. And that's how I try to look at this is whenever I think I can't sharpen the podcast more or find another platform or find a means to evade their censorship, it pushes on me harder. And then you just have to keep evolving yourself. So I don't know. In a weird way, it is kind of a blessing. I don't know.
Yeah, technology keeps changing. So if you keep just being fractionally ahead of the curve of technology, that's the key. And that's what you've done. You know, you got set up on Rumble, and now Russell Brand and those sort of people are setting up nervously on Rumble because they can sense that they're the ones about to be banned on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you're now a trendsetter.
I also kind of hate how people are like, they're so brave, they're leaving YouTube now. Like, motherfucker, I've been kicked off for 14 months. Like Russell Brand's thinking about it was in the news the other day where, hey, I got nothing against Russell Brand, the more the merrier. And ultimately it will help me if bigger and bigger creators come over because they'll pull over followers. That being said, people are like, he got a strike when he announced that he was going to go do a exclusive interview with Rumble. Everyone's talking about the fight of sense, and it's like, what? You got one strike because you threatened to bring your 6 million followers over to another platform? Like, motherfucker, I've been banned for a year. I don't know. I don't want to. I think I'm just going to get angry and start yelling. So let's maybe veer away from that. But I don't know.
Do you think that you would rather have, say, 2 million people every episode listening going up to 3 and 10, or would you rather have, say, going down to 30 and 50, but there are increasingly more and more interesting and important listeners?
Probably the latter. You'd probably want the more resolute crew of listeners. There's definitely like there's definitely some ego in this. Um you know, like when I was pre-med and I would study nonstop and I would score a 99 and the class average would be a 50. It wasn't enough that, and it's not like that meme, like it's not enough that I succeed, others must fail. It's not that. I don't take any pleasure in anybody else failing. To me, it was just, it wasn't enough that I got an A. I had to know that I was not only doing better, but that I was doing the best. I had to know that because if you're studying 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you only kind of do better than the guy that's like partying all the time, then you just feel fucking stupid. So like I wanted to have something to show for my work. And what was so upsetting about is studying for the MCAT for 9 months or 10, whatever the fuck it was. September 2012 to May or June 2013. I couldn't get above like the 50th or 60th percentile for 9 months. I was taking all these practice tests. And some people are like, "Dude, that's like a solid that's like enough to apply." But I was like, "I don't want like enough to apply. I don't I don't wanna just, oh, you got a B, you passed." Like, no, I knew I was putting in more work than anyone else. And like I wanted for myself to see that I was achieving more than the average person. And I finally broke through in like the final 7 days of studying. I just I just like pushed through like the bubble burst and I just fell through and I ended up scoring in the 95th.6 percentile. And I was proud of that. I still wish I did better. But the reason I say that is like, to me, the idea of this podcast being successful is getting 10 million subscribers. To me, that's like a respectful number. A million is still cool, but there are some shitty channels that have a million. 100,000 is, I mean, again, a good benchmark, but it's not what I want. There's definitely some ego in this, and that it's not just money or not just whatever the fuck. Like, I know I'm putting my heart and soul into this. I know I study whenever I have like a book on, I have a guest on to talk about their book. I fucking study it like I am taking a test. Yeah, always non-negotiable. You get 8 hours of sleep. You go to the gym. You meditate. Just you show up every day like it's the fucking championship. And I've been doing that for 936 episodes. And Yeah, I mean, Dr. Malone, Dr. McCullough, they got interviewed them months before Rogan did, multiple times before Rogan did. And like there is part of me that like it's not enough that I just pass the test. I have to know for my own sanity that I was studying for a 95th percentile grade. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is it more important to have done the work or more important to get the outcome?
What I'm getting at is the two have to be intertwined. If you just get the outcome and didn't really work that hard, I don't think it's as sweet. And
For sure.
if you just do the work and get an okay outcome, that's very bitter. I want, and who knows, maybe there's something deeper than that. Maybe that is me just trying to make sense of an absurd universe, trying to find, maybe it's not even success of a podcast. It's just some weird yearning for logic, right? If you do work A, you get product B. Who knows? Maybe this is just like a deeply like philosophical thing. I have no idea. I don't give a shit. I want it to work. I don't care if I never meet someone that watches the podcast. It always is a pleasure, like meeting someone like you. It always is a pleasure to meet someone that's like, dude, I fucking love the podcast. That makes my day, and it never won't make my day. But every new subscriber from here on out could be someone that I never meet, and I'm fine with that. Like I have to know that I produced this, and I produced something that was worth it, and something that showed my work. I don't want to just put in the work and like do okay. And I never enter something with the mindset of just doing okay. To me, that is a form of torture, is to just get a passing grade. I'd rather not do it at all, or I'd rather fail. And I'd rather be the best failure there is. I'd rather get a perfect 0% on the test. Like if I'm going to fail, I want to be the best failure. That's what this is to me. And I don't, and then who knows where that, I love how Ed had no idea, but he's just acting as my impromptu psychiatrist right now. But I don't know if there's even like a deeper thing. Is it my own like self worth? Is it a lack of self love? Am I trying to gain my own approval from myself or from something abstract? Like instead of a relationship or a friendship, I'm trying to get human traits from an inhuman podcast, or I'm relating
That's a
subscribers
good
to
point.
approval. It might be
Uh,
it could be just
When
like maybe
interacting with technology, yeah.
I might be trying to find a human trait in something that is in I might be trying to get blood from a rock. I might be trying to
So,
find love and approval from a podcast, which is retarded.
yeah, it's a really good point that when you deal with screens all the time, you feel like to deliver a message, you have to do it through the screen. But that's like about, 100 obfuscations straight away.
Yeah.
You could just walk up to someone and say,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's like those guys that just chase money forever. And I have nothing against money. I'd like a ton of it. I'm not a dirty communist. But like I think it was Tim Dillon, the comedian who I love, who makes like a quarter million a month off Patreon. And if you go back and listen to his podcasts between like 2016 and 2019, they're fucking hilarious because he's just so angry. He's overweight. He's in a shitty apartment. And if you go back and listen to him, even at that time, you go, this guy's funnier than anyone I've heard. And it's funny because he knows he's funnier than anyone. And he's like, but I can't fucking make $1. And he's just giving like bus tours in New York City on the side. And then he gets on Rogan, then he goes on to become just like now he's just worth millions. But it's so funny going back and listening to that anger because it's real. But he talks about he goes, you know, he's talking to his friend who's also a comedian. He goes, if you ever catch up, he goes, I'm not saying you won't. You probably will. So you're a funny guy. Because his friend's fucking with him. He's like, I'm gonna catch you one day, Tim. And he goes, you will. He goes, just don't be surprised at how much it sucks when you get here. And to me, that was such a profound statement because he's like, the money is fun the first time you stay at like a 5-star hotel, or he's like, you buy like a Bentley or whatever. And he goes, it gets old. But then he goes on to kind of like a liberating way, actually. He goes, eventually you start seeking out relationships, like genuine relationships, loving, or he's a gay guy, but he's like, I'd love one day I'd like to get married and or and adopt a kid, and he's going on and on. And he goes, and I've had glimpses of it before, where I have a relationship that's not just sex or not just like fame based, where people are like, oh, I know you. And he goes, and when you have those moments of just being with someone that appreciates you for you and you appreciate them for them, he goes, you can't help but chuckle that you used to look for this feeling in a Netflix special or in
Mm.
a novel. And
That's the mind control.
I can't help but think one day I'll find something and go, oh, I was looking for this feeling in a podcast. How fucking stupid am I? I don't know,
It's a
man.
very really good point. What might happen is you might meet someone from the podcast
Oh, that's a good point.
randomly.
That's a good point.
You just don't know. Like the energy is sort of people some way or another are tuned to your energy, so they're going to dig you out on another platform or whatever. So you just don't know what's going to happen in the future, like the ripples in the waves and stuff. Like who knows? They say that there's these. I read a book a few years ago, something, it was called Giant Waves or something, but it's basically about the phenomena that in the ocean, there's just every so often a giant, massive, like
Rogue,
50, 100
rogue,
meter.
yeah, rogue wave.
Yeah, have you heard of this?
I've heard of rogue waves. I don't know about the documentary you're talking about or book.
Yeah, just that really. But it just seems weird. Like, why is a still sea and then suddenly a giant wave? But that could have just been started by like a fingertip, really,
Yeah,
because it has to start somewhere. So who knows what ripples of energy you've sent around and might come back.
that's a great point, actually. Like, who, like, think about like the iceberg that sunk the Titanic. Like, what led to that iceberg being there? And like, amongst other icebergs, I'm sure it was just another iceberg. But like, who was on the Titanic? Wasn't there a Vanderbilt, an Astor, Astor? There are some huge like movers and shakers of Wall Street. And then the conspiracy is that they were killed off. But like, even if that wasn't a conspiracy, you're an iceberg, and then you end up dramatically shifting like the makeup of the power elite of the most powerful city on the planet. Like,
Mm.
I don't know.
Seems an elaborate way to assassinate someone, build the biggest ship. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that was the idea is that because it sank a little over a year before the creation of the Federal Reserve. It sank in April 1912. The Federal Reserve was, I think, October 1913. The idea is like those were guys that weren't signing on board with it, but that's it's a convenient conspiracy, right? Yeah. How, build the biggest. How the fuck would you ensure that they're there? Yeah. I'm not entirely on board with the Titanic conspiracy, but
there was a woman, like a nurse, who was on the sister ship that also sank. It was
Lusitania.
some, yeah. Have you heard that? She was like on both. She
Oh,
survived
she was
both
on both.
sinkings.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
jeez.
something like that. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's like that poor guy that fled Hiroshima and went to go stay with family in Nagasaki.
Did he?
Yeah, that's fucking terrible. He survived both. That's
No way.
awful. Yeah. A woman who was, I think, just below the impact of the plane crash in like the North or South Tower survived. And then, do you remember that plane crash in New York only like a couple months after 9/11? Kind of gets covered up because not covered up, but people forget about it because 9/11 was so huge. But like a
I
plane went
remember.
down in like suburban New York in like January 2002 or something and like killed everyone on board. And she was on there.
Weird. That
Yeah.
was it suspicious.
No, no, I mean it was a tragedy. No, nothing suspicious about it. There was a girl who survived the Columbine shooting who I think also survived the Virginia Tech shooting, like 15 years later. I don't know. These are kind of depressing. I don't know where we're going with this.
Yeah, well, the joy of life. It's better to survive these
Yeah.
horrendous sinkings and shootings and whatnot. But
Yeah, I don't know. Hey Ed, can you do you think you can monologue for like 30 seconds? I gotta go use the restroom.
yeah, sure, I will. I will
Welcome
modestly put you over.
welcome to Edcast.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's an honor to be here. Perhaps I will go back to this. So thank you to Tommy. Thank you to Tommy. Thank you to Tommy. I have been inspired by Tommy and his show, and it was on Tommy's show that I first saw Dr. Matthias Desmet interviewed with Dr. Robert Malone after seeing Dr. Robert Malone on Joe Rogan, and I was like, oh, wow. Matthias Desmet is the psychologist. Dr. Malone was the inventor of the vaccine. And the conversation they had was just eye-opening. It changed the way I saw things a little, confirmed what I was thinking. And that's all thanks to Tommy. So I kind of realized that what had happened, the media had essentially had changed, and the cream had risen to the top. Tommy is the new generation, so it's an honor to be here. So yeah, I keep praising him. I wonder if he's listening to this right now. Does he know I'm praising him? But yeah, Tommy's the man. That's all I can say. He's a fantastic, introverted, brilliant mind, great leader, intelligent, just a fantastic person. I don't know what else to say. I could just keep saying he is wonderful, one of the best ever in the world ever. And his name is Tommy High Five Carrigan.
What's
Hey,
up, fuckers? Um, so and I got another podcast in like 20 minutes, so
where is my man? It's been an honor.
no, let's run the clock out. How did you find this podcast and where do you see it go? Because I have all of my own ideas, but it's also like I don't know. Sometimes people ask me like, "How do I find guests?" And I'll just show them like, "Oh, I just Google their name and try to email them." And they're like, "Really?" Like I think you had like a whole team. I'm like, "Nope." I just or they'll have to like how do you? I'll show them like my little studio room. Like that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. And like I see it because it's the back end that I see, like the creation point. But on the flip side, like I can never see how it's received because the one common denominator of every episode is me. So I can never see an episode that I haven't seen before. Does that make sense? So yeah, how do you receive it and like where do you see it going and how did you find it?
Yeah, I found it because of your interview with Dr. Malone and Dr. Desmet after the Joe Rogan show. And because Dr. Robert Malone said mass formation psychosis, I was like, oh, I had been hypnotized too. It is psychosis. And I realized I was in a different state of it. But I followed him over to your show because I just saw Dr. Malone interview. And then I saw that he was with Dr. Desmet here. So this was like a triangle relationship. It was the doctor explaining his theory to a young, thoughtful introvert who was trying to find the answer. There was nothing in your face, there was nothing in your body language that said you were not being genuine. It's very important. That's why Joe Rogan is so good, because you know he's genuine. You can see his body language up close. Same with you. So I feel it's honesty. So hearing Dr. Malone and Desmet talk, I was like, okay, that is what's been going on. That is what the media has done. Algorithms did that deliberately through programming. So the use of algorithms is a sort of human, what's the word, like crimes against humanity, I think, is what the algorithm has been used for. But going back to the darkness, sorry, I was then coming back to your and where you're going is, I just think that people want to hear you talk and interview and ask questions. So wherever the technology goes, as long as you're doing that, I think that the technology will guide it.
I got you. Just keep doing what I'm doing, and the rest will kind of figure itself out.
I think so. People are going to reach out to you. So if you ask the right questions, you're going to get guests on that want to tell you more. And if you sort of carve the shape of the ice out, you're just going to make your own shape based on it. So everyone's shape is different. But yeah, I think that with blockchain technology, and I advocated for Bitcoin for Chia, I think that NFTs are something that perhaps I could throw a slide up here.
Sure.
So yeah, to summarize it all, I think if you wanted to focus on a couple of key points, you could look at Chia's NFT One platform, their data layer, and also decentralized identities. Good to have a look at that. And I think that I've seen some of your digital art. I mean, I would love to buy that myself. So if you ever sold that as an NFT, you'd have at least one buyer. But
All
I
right.
think that, yeah, I think that's the direction it's all going.
And this is something, and I guess we'll use the last like 15 minutes to do this, and we could kind of dovetail this into another episode. Um, could you explain to me and the listener, and for anybody listening, no, this is not planned, and no, I'm not getting anything from this, and I don't think you're getting anything from this. What is what it to a layman like me, to a knuckle dragging layman? What the hell is Chia?
Yeah, Chia is. Can I just get a glass of water?
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah.
It's but 2 meters away, but I feel
Go
I need
go
to.
go go grab it. Go grab it. Yeah, so for anybody listening, Ed's tried to explain this to me before, and I am admittedly a crypto blockchain Neanderthal. Um, I think I theoretically get the idea of it. Um, but I'm humble enough to acknowledge that I don't think I fully grasp it, and that's why I don't fully grasp its potential or implications. Um, but if it seems to be this is something that you are well versed in, and it is something I'd like to do a full podcast with you about. What is so like all of that, all of that's gibberish to me. Like Chia NFT one platform data, like that means nothing to me. And that's not an insult of it. That's not a critique of it. That is if you and I went to like a laser energetics lab and they started reading back atomic spectroscopy to us, we'd kind of both be nodding like, what does this mean? And they'd be like, oh, we're gonna cure cancer. We'd be like, oh, perfect, okay. But if you start telling me like the wavelengths of aldehydes and ketones, I'd be like, dude, I don't fucking. It's been 15 years since I took OChem. I don't. What in God's name are you trying to tell me? Right?
Yeah,
Can
no,
you explain
it's
it to
really
me?
good you've highlighted it, because like I thought I had highlighted the key points in the slide I made here, but it's clear that the key terms that they've got don't mean much to people. So that is good to know. Essentially, Chia is like Bitcoin 2. That's what essentially it is. So with how sort of how much Bitcoin helped with uh, digital gold, Chia is someone else's vision of uh, basically fixing all the problems of blockchain. So Chia is the most decentralized blockchain on Earth. And because it's decentralized, it means it can't be closed easily. It can't be. So it's just like Bitcoin. Any value stored on it is mathematically certain to be stored forever. And yeah, it's 1 year old, and they've just launched their NFT platform, which is the way you can sell art or maybe moments, or perhaps you could sell a story, or maybe a one-page piece that you sell as an NFT, and only the person who buys it gets to see what you wrote. So it could be your thought of the day, but only the subscriber who buys that NFT does it. With Patreon, you go through Patreon, the payments, the credit card, the censorship. This is not censorable. There's nothing can happen to stop you having access to this blockchain and this art that you sell. Nothing can ever take it away from you unless you maybe lose your password. That could take it away. But yeah, it's uncensorable, highly decentralized, and cutting edge technology.
So what would happen if I did give you one of like because I do post like my old, anyone that follows on Twitter or something, I post like the old digital art I used to make between like 2017 and 2019 when I was really into graphic design. What would happen if I just took one of those and gave it to you and told you to like go wild? Like what actually just out of curiosity, like what happens?
Yeah, well, you could sell it yourself from a computer by pretty much uploading it, and it would create an NFT. And likewise, you could create an NFT and send it to me as a gift, but you can put it up for sale. I know that Ed Snowden's first NFT sold for $5.5 million. He sold one for $5.5 million,
The f
and he gets royalties on top of every resale. So if someone buys it for 10 million, he might get another 20% again.
So do I need to hold off onto the pod until the podcast gets more well known, and will that increase the value? Because right now people buy prints for like $5 on fineartamerica.com or like Shopify. Do I need to wait until the podcast is more successful and then really
No, I
make it?
don't think so. I mean, because it's so early, you'd be the kind of uh, you'd be the let's just say you'd be like the first celebrity who's selling art and NFTs on the platform. So you would be the first media member, the first person who's like got his own brand essentially. So it in that sense it's early, so there'd be no reason to wait. But by the same token, I wouldn't recommend rushing in because a lot of people might sell NFTs thinking, oh, I should just sell something quickly, but why are you selling it? You trying to make money or so? But your art is so good that whether you would sell it as an NFT or just, I think your art is brilliant. So it's
Thank you.
good to be aware of it. Yeah. How did you do it? I wanted to ask how you even did it.
Uh, I taught myself on I taught myself on an iPhone 4, like right when I moved home. So August 2016, 2.5 years after my brother died, and I was just kind of at the bottom of the barrel. I moved home. I was 600 miles from all the friends I had made over the previous 15 years, including my girlfriend. I was just in a bad spot mentally, physically. So I was just kind of stranded at home, entirely by my own doing. And I'd never fucked with graphic design before, but I had downloaded the app Photoshop Mix. I don't think it's even on the App Store anymore. But it was a free app and there's only a handful of things you could do. But like a good tool, if you can just figure out how to use it, you can really do anything. And just for shits and giggles, I would just make stuff. And you know, a year went by, 2 years went by, and I was actually kind of getting good. And every once in a while, I'd like make a design for somebody, and they'd give me like $10. And finally, my mom and dad bought me like an iPad in like 2018 or something, and the processing power was just like 100 times that of my iPhone. And so I started using like the little stylus, like the pencil with a huge, 12-inch screen, and I could just really see what I was doing, and I could work with 8192 by 8192 pixel images. And what I would do is I would really never plan anything. I would just kind of like it was very philosophical. It was almost like Taoism or Taoism. You would just kind of like follow the middle line, and like you just some things would just feel right. And like so I found like a really high resolution image of King Tut's golden mask. And I was just looking at it. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like cut it out like perfectly. And so I'd go in down to like the pixel. And it would take me like 2 days, but I'd perfectly cut out
Really?
images. Oh yeah, just I'll put on an audiobook. And that's kind of the early things where I started listening to a ton of audiobooks was I didn't know what else to do. And I would go in and make it. And then I'd have like what am I gonna do with it now? And sometimes I would change the color on it. And but for instance, that one I was just like it wasn't perfectly symmetrical. And so I didn't know what to do with it. So the only thing that was perfectly symmetrical to it was itself. So I would just copy and paste it. And then so I kind of started just making puzzle pieces out of it. And I made like a circle. I was like, that's cool. And I just kind of did it again and again and again. And it started to take on this weird. And then there's just always this moment when you're making it where all of a sudden it starts to come together and you're like, oh, I got this idea. Like I made like cherubs covered in tattoos. Like I was watching this old video on like Mac Miller about, he died when he was 27. And I think that was 2017 or 2018. And I was just looking at his tattoos and I just remember thinking like he was so young. And I just had this idea of like, what if, and then there's like a famous music video of him where the first 1 minute is actually like a home videotape of him singing when he was like 5 years old. And it's like so sad to go back and look at because now you're like, you see him, his parents are videotaping him. He's like 5 years old and he's rapping. I think the song is Best Day Ever. And then it leads into like him in current day. He's just this huge fucking rapper and he's got millions of dollars and he's just got these sick beats. But it's really sad to watch because you see him as this little kid. And I think a lot of it was like I saw my own brother. Like I get it. My brother was 27. And then I started thinking of like they are still just these little babies. And and then I started thinking of like just like the angelic cherub. And so I started taking like high resolution images of like Mac Miller's tattoos and like Post Malone and start overlaying them on a cherubs and giving them like guitars and stuff. And like, what would it be like if the Sistine Chapel was instead like modern day, like SoundCloud rappers and all other stuff? I made one of like the Vitruvian Man, Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and I cut that out and then I kind of pieced them
Wow.
together. And as I zoomed out, I realized I was making like a retina, like an eye. And so it got into this weird like symbology shit. And I was trying to turn it into an eye. And then I took the alphabet from the Disney movie Atlantis from like the 90s. And I just like wrote something, some like Buddhist like chant, like no mind, no body, no life, no death. I don't know why. I just did it. It just felt good. And like speaking of Stanley Kubrick, one of the favorite ones I made is a design that I wanted to be a snowboard. Nobody ever picked it up, but it was a long rectangular canvas, like 2000 by 10,000 pixels. And at the bottom, it starts as like an ape and it's like screaming. You see like saliva coming out of its mouth. And behind it are DNA molecules and with cave paintings that I actually got high resolution scans from like a cave in France, like with the earliest cave paintings, and I like superimposed them on there. And then as you go up, the cave paintings slowly turn into cuneiform, the first written language. And then as those go up, they turn into more modern symbols. And then like the DNA strands turn into like the moon, right? 2001 Space Odyssey, and then the moon turns like all black, and then it's just like little stars in the inky blackness, and then even that goes to pure black. And at the top is just the red dot from HAL 9000, and it's like the progression of man. And I think I tried to get like a snowboard company to buy it, and they were like, they're like, stop emailing us, like this is harassment. But like, the point is, I never had a plan for any of it, and I think that's where I draw a lot of my guidance for this podcast is like you just have to do it and it kind of feels right. And it's not until you're like 90% of the way through that you see the big picture. But you can't see the big picture until you're 90% of the way through. So it's this weird catch 22. There's a quote, and we'll finish up on this. But there's a quote I found, I think like last week that I really like, or the week before, I don't know. And it's the irony is that you will not be ready until you've already done it. And to me, I think there's more in that than I can even fully unpack right now. You won't have the courage. You won't be ready to do it until you've already done it. And then you don't have to do it.
At which point it will be too late.
Yeah, or you'll be done. So it's
So
like,
don't so don't do it at all. It's not worth it.
don't do it at all, or don't wait at all. Just go.
Just
You know?
go
Yeah, you.
because time is against you. It's a beautiful thought to end.
Yeah. As I've reached a point where I like finally don't get nervous before I do podcasts anymore, I've done 900 of them. Like I'd wanted to make a podcast starting in like 2015, and I was like, "Well, no, I'm not ready. I don't know." And it's like, no, by the time you start doing them, you're fine. I'm finally ready to start doing podcasts after 936 episodes.
God,
But like
you're so good at them. Like,
it's
what will you be like after 2000? Do you think you'd get nervous with any certain guest then?
I still get I still get nervous sometimes. I had on very rarely. I had on Rick Prado, CIA paramilitary officer. It's like a legend. I had him on Thursday or Wednesday of last week. That was one I got nervous for. Um, Very first time I had on Dr. Malone, episode 495. I was nervous for that. Um, Probably only like 5 episodes I've done. I get nervous before, but then the anxiety goes away as soon as the podcast starts.
That's weird, isn't it? That is strange.
It's the
Yeah, I
odd,
think I have the same thing. Yeah, never, ever, 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 ever a problem, but in the build up, always
yeah,
a problem.
oh yeah.
Strange.
So Mike Tyson would say though, because as he's approaching the ring, he's scared to death. He's having nightmares leading up to the fight. He's so scared. He's in the locker room. He's trying not to throw up. He's walking outside. The crowd's fucking cheering. And he gets closer and closer, and the lights are blinding. He's like, "What am I doing? I just want to run." And he goes, and then I step into the ring, and I'm a god. And I always get goosebumps when I hear that. He goes, as soon as I step in, he goes, the fight's over. It hasn't even started yet, but it's over. I won. Yeah, I mean, that is how I feel sometimes. Is I get nervous, I'm nervous, and then as soon as I start going, I'm just like, you're in my fucking arena now. Like, this is my house. And then it's so weird hearing me talk about this because the guest is, what are you talking about? This is just a podcast. I'm like, you ready to fucking die? It's like what? What? I thought we were gonna talk about my book. You're in my house. Relax, dude. This is not a boxing ring. This is a friendly Zoom conversation. I'm gonna tear you limb from limb. Like, dude, fuck, fucking relax. Jesus Christ in heaven. I thought this was gonna be a yeah. Maybe I shouldn't be taking that Mike Tyson logic to a podcast. Maybe there's a fucking lost in
You
translation.
need to call him out, man.
Yeah.
Call him
Oh,
out.
yeah. I need to get him on my podcast and be like, you're in my ring. Although I think he
Yeah.
has a podcast. So maybe he wouldn't be in my arena. Maybe I'd be in his.
He's into his Alex Jones stuff.
Yeah.
He smokes weed on his podcast, I think. Hot
Yeah.
boxing, is it?
Yeah. Hot boxing with Mike Tyson. I think he did an interview with Alex Jones, which is wild. Mike Tyson and Alex Jones. But we got to wrap this one up. I got somebody
Take
waiting
it
in the
easy,
waiting
my
room.
friend.
Ed, I'll message you right after this. I know it's late your time, so I imagine you're going to bed. I'll message you when this is up. Um, let's 100% do another episode, man. That was fun as fuck. You're a cool guy. I'm glad we met. I look forward to our future episodes.
Yeah, you too, Tommy. Yeah, it's been an honor. So good luck
All
with
right.
your next interview and chat soon.
Thank you so much. Much love, Ed. God bless.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Take care.